Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. This is yet another of the videos on races of the worlds. In today's rendition, if you will, we're going to talk about a major misconception. When we've talked to a lot of people about it, many people refer to reptilians as being a complicated problem. Well, in all fairness, it's a lot more complicated than you might think. Okay, because the reality behind it is simple. When you're looking at reptilians on the whole, we are not talking about a reptilian. Okay, we're not talking about one race. Okay, most people that we talk to seem to have the idea, or at least the way it comes across, is that they are expecting only one race and they're all on the same agenda. Okay, well, the reality is a lot more complicated. Now, let's get the first part of the equation out of the way. Okay, the following is a list of different races that I've already got documented. I've already got complete layouts of their culture, of their reproductive systems, the whole, not their system, but their way, their treatment of it. Okay, I'm not talking about the biological side of it so much as the sociological side. Okay, understanding I myself am not a scientist per se, at least not by Terran standards. So the following are these are all different races, though some of them are related. And some of them are related to each other, but they are all individual races. Ssrraazzaassians, which are a 7.5 to 8.5 foot reptile. Okay, the Teklek, which are your 4.5 to 5.5 foot raptor-like reptile. Then you've got Taurmenons, which look similar to the Ssrraazzaassians, but they do have a common root, but they are a different race. The Drakes, which were the predecessor of the Ssrraazzaassian and the Taurmenon, as well as a couple others, and we'll get to them later. Okay, then you have the Chituari, which, to the best of my knowledge, is the only reptilian that actually has 5 fingers. Okay, then we have the Komalians and the Zotaarrs. Now, the Zotaarrs are an interesting race because most reptilian races are really large. Okay, like they're very solidly built, they're very strong, and highly aggressive in most cases. The Zotaarr evolved and look very similar to what a gecko looks like, but it is still a reptilian. Okay, and certainly not one to be underestimated. Now, a couple of the other ones that we're working on, okay, the Arrawrrah and the Arrawrahar are both very similar, okay, but they are distinct races. Then you have the Rawrr-Kha, the Teyrraannaarr, and the Tsilocon. And no, that is not silicon as in the element. Okay, actually, in all fairness, my apologies, that is actually pronounced the Tsilocon. Okay, now, that said, what do we got here? I'm just looking at a sheet to keep everything straight. So we got 5, 6, whoops. So there, right off the top, are a dozen reptilian races, all of which have their own focal points, their own outlooks. The first batch of them I've actually got the documentation already completed on. Okay. The other ones, I'm in the process of going through and itemizing them, just to make it a little more clear for people, so that you can understand that we are dealing with a race that is with a series of races. The reason we refer to them as reptilian is because by human standards, that's what they look like. Okay, they look very much like maned reptiles on Earth. Now, there is one I did not list here that is a snake. Okay, it looks very much like a snake, but there are some distinct differences to it. It only looks like a snake, in all fairness, on the top part, not on the bottom. But we will get to that at a later date. Okay, the thing to keep in mind is that when we're talking about reptilians, on the whole, first and foremost, and we're going to jump back a little. Okay, if we go back to the late 70s, early 80s, late 1970s, early 1980s, there was a series out and a movie out that was called V. Now, this laid out the progress of reptilians coming in, infiltrating the governments, and taking over the world, while they were trying to do a few other things. You can watch the movie. In my opinion, it was a great movie, but it's certainly not indicative of the way that reptilian races of any one of the ones listed above are interested in actually doing. Okay, so taking that into consideration, to the best of my knowledge, none of these races are trying to take over Earth. Okay, now I'm pretty certain I did a video earlier on the actual concept of an off-world attack. Now, what you got to understand is with some of these races, yeah, they definitely are aggressive. You know, they are more aggressive than humans, although a whole lot more organized. Okay, but there are some definitive differences in their cultural outlooks. And this is what I've been in the process of documenting, and what I've been given go-ahead to document with certain stipulations. But the important factor for you to understand is that we are talking about multiple races, all of which have a common similarity to some of the animals on Earth, which is why we refer to them as reptilian. It does not mean they are actual reptiles. And rest assured, once you get to know some of them, you'll come to understand they are not like your common animals. First of all, if they were common animals, they wouldn't be flying around in starships. Okay, but that's for another story, another day. For the moment, the whole issue of this one, and we're just keeping it rather on the short side for this one, but the real big issue is to realize that when we talk about reptilians, it is important to realize that the generality of a reptilian race is that I've just listed off. There are a dozen different races, okay, all of which are similar in appearance to Terran reptiles, but they are not the same race unto each other. Okay, and just like humans, some of these races are genetically connected, which when we're covering the individual races, you know, as we go on, we will explain what some of those differences are. Okay, and of course, if you have questions, absolutely contact me. Okay, now, the first Friday of every month, I am on Spaced Out Radio, okay, from 9 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. Pacific time, and you can certainly tap in on that site. Okay, that's on the internet. Okay, so I'm sure you can find it. If not, absolutely contact me. I'll be more than happy to pass it on to you. Okay, because what we're dealing with here is a major discrepancy in what the common people seem to understand, that reptilians are one package, and they really are not. Some of these races are quite literally in conflict with each other. Okay, so like everything out there, there are good and bad individuals in all races. Okay, all species have good and bad sides to them. It's up to you whether or not you focus on what the good sides are or what the bad sides are. Okay, but again, we have at least a dozen that we've already identified. Okay, you know, and the first, well, I've got, there are 7. The Ssrraazzaassian, Teklek, Taurmenon, Drake, Chituari, the Komalian, and the Zotaarr, I've already got complete files on. I'm still expanding on the files and on the information. There's a lot of data to go through in addition to normal day-to-day life. Okay, so that said, we're going to keep this short. We usually try to, otherwise we ramble in circles. So, if you like our videos, absolutely give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel so you can get the rest of the information, because we're going to be bringing out more and more of these races and more of the interaction. Okay, in a way that we hope makes sense. And if you've got questions, absolutely drop us a line at one of the contact names below. Okay, until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.